horrible, man. You start to realize this is pretty freaky.
What would be the point of like the characteristic of like the leopard was like unto a leopard, and his feet were the feet of a bear, and his mouth the mouth of a lion? Like, what does like that have to do with like the first beast?
It's assimilated all of them. Those were all characteristics of the three beasts that were before it. It assimilated them all. Just like it's assimilating all the religions too. And they still do it to this day. Like about a year and a half ago when they brought the Pachamama to the Vatican, then a bunch of pagans worshipped it in the garden and gave it to the Pope. And he blessed it and renamed it Our Lady of the Amazon. You see what he did there? He conquered, he brought it into the pantheon. Yeah, you can keep your God, but now it's actually Mary. It's actually Your Lady of the Amazon. You see how that works?
Yeah.
That's what Rome's always been doing. They do it to this day. That happening is a great wonder that God allowed it. Like, when I watched that happen, I was like, what the heck is going on? But now I realize it is a present tense case in point that you can literally point to and be like, look, they are still doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And now look what they're doing with the Human Fraternity Project. They're assimilating the Muslims and the Jews to be like, yeah, look, see, we all worship the same God. Yeah, you certainly do. The same, not God. You know what I mean?
So they've been worshiping the same gods since the beginning.
Yeah, it is like the Tower of Babel too.
Literally, the second beast, which is like you said, that's the one that looks like a lamb, right, with the two horns. That's supposed to be the papacy, then?
It's the pantheon, really. It's the religious empire of Rome. When you look at Vatican, it's not a church. It's not a church of Jesus at all. It's the Roman pantheon with a pile of makeup on. You know what I mean? It's wearing a disguise. It's the pantheon. Just like Jezebel painted her face. They stole the vineyard of Christ. Just like Jezebel stole the vineyard of Naboth. Just like Satan stole the vineyard of Adam. Just like Ethbaal stole the vineyard of whatever the king before him was in Tyre. Just like Athaliah, the daughter of Jezebel, tried to kill all the children of David, except for only Joash survived, and he was kept. God always preserving a remnant. Jezebel was killing all the prophets of God. It's the same thing. All those stories are so we would recognize this. It's literally like, okay, in Daniel we hear that the kingdoms had princes over them. We don't know much about them, but there's like the prince. We hear about the prince of Persia, right? It's like some heavenly principality, some spiritual power that was over that kingdom. But the prince of Israel is Michael. Who is the prince of Rome? Revelation tells us that ancient serpent and the devil. He had 7 heads and 10 horns. He's the prince of Rome. And he killed Jesus too. Rome killed Jesus. It was really Satan. You starting to see the bigger picture there?
Yeah. What about
That's why Satan thinks he's like winning right now. He's fooling a lot of people, man.
and with like the part that it talks about how like it was wounded and his deadly heal was his deadly wound was healed, and all the world followed after the beast.
The head was wounded.
Isn't that similar to what God prophesied in Genesis early on with the serpent?
Yeah, maybe. It's dead, but it's still around. It's like the beast which was and now is not and yet is. Like Jesus already defeated it, but it's still here.
So, from what you were saying, the 2 horns on the second beast represent like its 2 authorities, like its kingship and its priesthood or whatever?
Yeah, horns are power. It's priest and king.
What about for the first beast? Because it says it has like 7 heads and 10 horns.
That's Rome.
Oh yeah, how you said it was like broken up?
The Roman Empire, yeah. Like the feet and 10 toes of Nebuchadnezzar's image in his dream. They were made of iron and clay. Rome, east and west, 10 toes, 10 horns.
Wait, so what about like the son of perdition then?
That's the man of sin.
The man of sin, where does he show up then?
Not really mentioned much in Revelation.
Because I don't see anything like I read Revelation and I didn't really see it mentioned in at all.
Still there, but not really as important. Nobody's going to give him too much attention. Not in Scripture.
Because what I know Paul talks. What was it Paul that talks about it? How there's like about the Antichrist, or was it I think was it John, First John? I forgot. That talks about how there's like multiple Antichrists, and I think they mentioned like the Antichrist in it as well. I don't know if you remember what I'm trying to mention. Oh, yeah, I found it. First John 2:18. Like it says, like you heard that the Antichrist shall come. Even now there are many Antichrists, whereby we know that this is the last time.
Yeah, many antichrists, many instead of Christs. A lot of times people take a pastor instead of Christ, or they take like the Pope instead of Christ. Instead of knowing Jesus, they're just submitting to this man. They don't realize, like, in the family of Christ, we're all brothers. It doesn't work like that. You might have an older brother. You honor them. But, like, you're not going to, like, listen to them when they tell you to kiss a statue. And be like, excuse me? Are you sure you're my brother?
Yeah, it's a lot of interesting stuff so far from what we've talked about, especially Rome, like kind of like assimilating all the religions and stuff like that and conquering them in a way.
Yep. That, like, inclusive attitude, which, like, seems like on the surface, like, oh, yeah, like, don't you want to accept everybody? But that's not really how it works. It's a lie. We're not getting on other people's side. Like, you get on God's side, or you die. That's how it works. Like, I don't have to accept that you are a transsexual. Nope, I don't. And God doesn't either. You can. You're free to do that and mutilate your body, but you are literally heaping wrath on yourself. If you abide there, for which you might not be able to find repentance, you will be forever cut off because you did not submit to your Creator. You weren't happy with the way you were made. I don't need to make you feel comfortable in that. In fact, if I do that, then I can just partake in your sin. I don't want to do that either. You know what I mean? I don't want nothing to do with it. But this attitude of everybody needs to, like, oh, accept everybody. No, that's not really how it works. I'm going to accept the Pope. I'm not going to accept Hitler.
So far, there's like we got different characters so far. We have the dragon, which is supposed to be Satan, right?
It is Satan, yeah.
We have the first beast, which is supposed to represent Rome.
The first beast in Revelation. But it's not the first beast in the Bible.
Well, in Revelation.
Yeah, we know what it is from the vision of Daniel. It's Rome.
And the second beast.
It's the Roman Empire.
And we said the second beast was papacy, right? Or like at least like.
Yeah, it's like the little horn. Daniel saw a little horn on the beast, the last beast, which is the Roman Empire. Little horn came up and uprooted 3. And it spoke blasphemies. And it changed times and laws. It's exactly what the papacy did. Changed times and laws. Changed, like, our calendar is literally the Gregorian calendar. Do you know why it's called that?
I forget. I remember learning about this.
It was made by a guy called Pope Gregory.
And oh yeah, I think you also mentioned how like a lot of the holidays, of course, was instituted by the Catholic Church, like Christmas.
All of them, yeah.
Christmas, Easter. It's not even like anything that's honoring God or of God. It's all.
They're none of the biblical holidays.
So like, the Easter that we celebrate, well, that many Christians celebrate, comes from like Ishtar, right? You said.
The Feast of Ishtar, yeah.
The Feast of Ishtar. Christmas was the winter solstice or something along that line, like the sun worship.
What's really freaky is in the Roman Feast of Ishtar, before it, they would have 40 days of weeping for Tammuz. But in the Roman Catholic Easter, they have 40 days of Lent. Like, they didn't even go that far. You know what I'm saying?
That's actually crazy. That makes sense.
Yeah. But the Feast of Ishtar was a horrible pagan thing. That's why there's rabbits and eggs and stuff. Because it was a fertility festival. They would sleep with virgins. I don't know if they were always virgins, but they would sleep with these women, and they would get pregnant. Some of them, and their babies would be about 3 months old the next year at Ishtar, and they would sacrifice them and have another orgy and do it again.
And then the harlot, the prostitute, you said would be representing what, the nations, the false religions or something?
The apostate church.
Okay, yeah.
Abominations are mixing paganism with Christianity. You can see that real clear in Ezekiel chapter 8. God shows him the abominations that were being done in the temple in Jerusalem. And they were all the mixing of pagan religion. All of them. Actually, they were... they had images. They were worshiping the sun, just like the Roman church does. They were weeping for Tammuz, and they had set up the image of jealousy. All those things. Well, the image of jealousy is like Asherah. Weeping for Tammuz is like Asherah's kid, Tammuz, or Ishtar's kid. And then that's why they would weep for Tammuz for 40 days, because Tammuz from Babylon was the son of Ishtar, or Asherah, or many other names for it, and he died. He was killed by a wild boar or something, and well, her husband was supposedly Nimrod, who became the sun, and she got pregnant by the rays of the sun, and then after he died, and then Tammuz grew up, got killed by a wild boar. Then she wept. She gathered all his pieces in a basket and wept over it for 40 days, and then he got resurrected. Freaky, right?
Yeah, it sounds also something like, I guess similar to like the Egyptian one that they have as well.
All the nations have copies of it, under different names. Not all, but lots of them do. Diana, I don't know all the different names. There's a whole bunch.
Isis, Osiris. What is the other one? The one that's supposed to represent Jesus, which people say. I forget his name. Oh my goodness. Horus. Yeah. Okay, so chapter 18. It's like, what is Babylon supposed to represent then?
I just said that. It's the apostate Gentile church.
Okay, so that does have to do with the women. Okay. And what does like the economy have to do with it? Like, from what I'm looking at, like the murder.
Story of Samson.
Yeah. Like I was putting that together because I remembered that.
When Samson's wife was unfaithful, she was given to another shepherd, like a false Samson, and then an anti-Samson, by her father. It's a type of Satan. He was super pissed off, obviously, so he gathered 300 foxes, tied their tails together, lit them on fire, and sent them through the fields, groves, and silos of the Philistines. He burned their economy. When they found out why it happened, they said, because his wife had been given to someone else. Samson did it because his wife had been given to someone else. They were super pissed off, and since they couldn't do anything to Samson, they went and burned her and her father's house with fire. Well, you see the beast doing that too. Philistines and the beast, and those two stories are like the same thing. It's the people of the world, and they're mad because they're suffering. Their economy is getting destroyed, just like the Philistines did, and it's all the whore's fault because she wasn't faithful to Samson, who's a type of Christ. So the judgments that are coming on the world is all because of the church, because she has been apostate. You get it?
Yeah, it's all fitting more.
And he says, and I will be more just than these Philistines by doing that. And he said, and afterward, I'm going to deal with them too. Then I'll be finished. That's what's going to happen. First, he's going to judge his adulterous wife for being adulterous. He's going to do that by afflicting the world, destroying their economy, causing other problems. They're going to turn on her. They're going to burn her. That's already happening. Look in my country, in Canada, over 50 churches have been burned. Then he's going to deal with the nations also. It's also to afflict her because you take Samson's wife is a type of the bride. She's a type of the bride who was unfaithful. But we see in other stories, other glimmers of her from different perspectives. Rahab was a harlot also, but she was delivered from being burned because of her faith. Bathsheba, she was delivered because she put her hope in David. She would have been killed by her husband. Tamar, she dressed up like a harlot. she was going to be burned, but it was discovered that she was actually more righteous. She was pregnant with Judah's kid. She was spared many times. The Levite and his concubine in Judges. That's a very similar story because she was unfaithful. She went back to her father's house, a type of Satan. The Levite went to speak comfortably to her and bring her back. But her father kept saying, hey, no, stay another day, stay another day, stay another day, until the 5th day. Then they left. And then the night of the 6th day, you see, that's very important. That's the night of the 6th day. They were in Gibeah, which is like Sodom and Gomorrah. And she ends up getting raped to death. It's very complicated. But that city ends up getting burned like Sodom. The Levite there is like Jesus bringing his bride out. He's speaking comfortably to her. I know you've been unfaithful, but you need to come back. You need to come with me. Satan is like, no, just another day. Marry your heart. Just stay. Another day, another day. Nope, it's really time to go. It's really time to go. And they were going to the house of God. So he was taking her to the city of God. So many different examples we see from different perspectives, but they all plug together to give you the full picture.
Is it also similar in a way to like, well, it is like to Revelation 12, right, with the woman and the dragon, right?
Right.
Can you like explain that?
That woman is the bride, the church, the Israel of God.
Not the apostate one, right?
Well, they kind of overlap each other sometimes. Well, sometimes not. Like in Revelation 12, she's not overlapping with the other one very much. But you can see, like, between Samson's wife and the Levite's concubine, how those two overlap a lot. Or like Rahab and Tamar overlap big time.
Which Tamar, like the one in Genesis or David's Tamar?
No, the one in Genesis. And Tamar was from the city of Timnah. Well, that's where Judah took her. Samson's wife was from Timnah. You see, there's so many connections between these stories that are deliberate. God did them on purpose. But it's all veiled. It's all a parable. And you can't get the whole picture unless you compare it all. That's what Paul said. We have the mind of Christ, comparing spiritual things with spiritual things. So like we have many, many examples of the bride. Esther, different things. But then in the story of Esther, you also have Vashti. She was a bride who wasn't faithful. She got destroyed. So it works like that, right? You can't really tell the difference sometimes. But Esther's identity was kept a secret. So was Sarah's, so was Rebecca's. All their identities was hidden. So was Tamar's, really, because Judah didn't know who she was. He slept with her, thought it was a prostitute.
Well, the more I'm looking at it like that, it's like these stories are just not stories.
They're just not stories, exactly. They're definitely just not stories. Because God has been expressing this same story over and over again, but every time you only get some details. You don't get them all. You get all the details when you get all the stories.
It's just funny how it happens like that, and then like God, like, it was like in His role for that, right?
Yeah, but and sometimes in the scriptures there's a prophet which gives context to things. Otherwise, you wouldn't have ever known.
That too, I do see that a lot. It's like what is it? It's like
God is already doing the thing, but like no one would have recognized it. Like if God is predicting something by a prophet, like it's because He was intending to do the thing, but He wanted people to pay attention to the thing He was going to do. But if He didn't foretell it, no one would know that was God actually doing that. But what God did in those cases is always significant and pointing to Christ every time. Scripture is incredible. I don't know. It's difficult if you're not already familiar with all these stories, but the more familiar you get, then you can do this. You can look at the stories together. Not, you're reading the one story and you're thinking what is all this about? But once you know the parallels from all the other places, you start to meditate and put them together, you understand God has repeated Himself here, because then there's a word I learned yesterday. It's called disambiguation. It's it means to make things more clear through repetition and just, I don't know. I'm not really Merriam-Webster dictionary, but by comparing these things, that's what Paul said. We compare spiritual things with spiritual things. By doing that, we can understand what God's purpose is throughout all of the things. Revelation gives you like a pattern, like a puzzle box cover. So you take these things, these patterns from the Old Testament, gather them up, and you can see them woven together in Revelation. They're all there, like woven, though. So we can see the pattern, like, what does this actually mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like I have the framework right now. Like, it's like you gave me a puzzle box, like a puzzle, like, you know, the ones, the jigsaw puzzles, and then you give me, like, the frame, like, the outside parts. And all I have to do right now is, like,
Fill it in.
fill it in, yeah. I think that's what I kind of got out of, like, reading the New Testament, you know? Like, I have the story of Jesus.
And the closer you get to finishing a puzzle, the faster it comes together.
Yeah, like, I have the story of Jesus, I have what he said, I have everything in the epistles, plus, like, the revelation of Jesus Christ. And he's just like, okay, this is what like, this all means, basically. And now it's, like, up to you to, like, see this throughout the rest of the scriptures. And I'm like, okay. It's like seeing how it all fits. I think that's, like, where I am right now.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not obviously the same in everybody's case, but it seems like when people like suddenly get it and then they never can unget it, you start to recognize it. And obviously, I don't think it's even possible. There's some people who probably can never get it, but the Holy Spirit helps you to do it, to compare the scriptures like that, so you can understand what he's really talking about.
I feel like I'm slowly getting it. And, like, I think today was, like, even more evident. Like, when I actually read through, like, the New Testament and I got to Revelation and I read it, like, it just made sense. Like, more sense than it used to make. Because beforehand, everything was just foggy. Because
Yeah, like it's no like small thing that Revelation literally mentions like every other part of the Bible. Everything, everywhere. Genesis right through. It mentions everything. And it's woven all together. You can't separate them. Revelation is like the revealing of, like, what did those things actually mean?
yeah, like, I had a foggy, like, understanding of everything because haven't fully read Revelation at the time. And I was kind of, like, depending on, like, what I've been told, like, how people explain things or how they showed it. And now that I read it, like, I have, like, a general grasp of everything, and now I'm just trying to, like, figure out, okay, what does this mean? What does that mean? And now I just need to read the rest of the Old Testament.
Yeah, so by comparing those puzzle pieces from the Old Testament with the pattern from Revelation, then you will start to like see, oh wow, like look at this is like that, and that's like that. You can start to like it becomes more and more clear, like when you're thinking about like who is this whore, right? Who is it? Even John, he was like he wondered when he saw it, he was like marveling, he's like, what is this? You know? Well, it gets more and more clear. You start to understand, you know, the bondwoman and the free woman.
Earthly Jerusalem and heavenly Jerusalem.
Yeah, of abominations. Why? Because she's fornicating. Well, it says that too. She's fornicating with the kings of the earth. Oh wow, look at that. She's cheating on Jesus. She says too that she's a queen. She's actually a widow. She doesn't even know it. It says that he will kill her children. Well, it's the same thing Jesus said about Jezebel. I will strike her children with death. Whose children? Blessed is he who takes and dashes thy little ones against the stone. Whose children were that? Babylon's. These are children of the bondwoman. Blessed is he who serves thee as thou hast served us. In her was found the blood of every prophet, martyr, apostle. And religion. Cain was religious. The people of Babel were religious. People everywhere are religious.
Yeah, I was just re-looking at it again. She's like, I sit a queen and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow.
All that comes from the Old Testament too. Those
Revelation 18:7.
Isaiah 47. Same language in Isaiah 47. Oh dear. Getting Babylon. The bondwoman and the free, basically. Then you get like the vineyard and it being like supplanted or subverted, and Elijah. But there's multiple Elijahs. Like we know about John and Elijah, those are easy. John the Baptist and Elijah, but there's more than that. And yeah, various like themes that go through Satan being defeated with his own sword, redemption. Redemption's a big one. Like the lost, subverted property being redeemed.
What about what was that one again? Oh man, I had it at my tip of my tongue. The give me a second. Oh yeah, like the wine press of like God's wrath. What about that?
Yeah, Armageddon.
Oh, that correlates. Okay.
Yeah, Armageddon is a valley, which represents the winepress of his wrath. It does so because it's many times used to actually be a place where that happens.
Yes, sir. I got 30 minutes in. I think I ran out of questions so far.
It's too much. You can't do it all in a day. It's like way too much.